You can become unrecognizable in 90 days. And it's not because you're suddenly going to turn into a different person. 90 days is more than enough time to change things you've been carrying for years. The problem is that almost nobody gets there. And it's not because they lack discipline. It's because everyone starts the wrong way. When someone decides to change, they try to fix everything at once. They start working out, waking up early, reading more, and organizing their whole life. And for a few days, it actually works. But then a bad day comes along, or they're extra tired, or something unexpected happens, and the excuses about not having enough time show up. Then everything falls apart. But the problem isn't you. It's not because you failed. It's because you started wrong. When the beginning demands too much, it's impossible to sustain. And that's why most changes die before they even become a habit. The challenge is never about knowing what to do. We always know exactly what we want to change. The problem is not having a method that works in daily life, and most importantly, not adjusting the way we think. In other words, to change, you need two things to start: method and mindset. The brain is wired to resist change. It is designed to save energy by repeating known patterns. When you try to change everything at once, your biology fights back. That's why just knowing what to do isn't enough. At some point, you need to make a clear decision, to think differently and want to be different. And that only happens when you start looking more at the long term. Now that this is clear, I'm going to give you some practices that can help you in this process. Instead of talking about generic habits, it makes more sense to look at practices that make the process easier. Simple things that completely change how you execute. 1. Redesign your environment. The first thing we need to change is the environment. In our daily lives, we don't make decisions as rationally as we like to imagine. We respond to what is easiest, most visible, and closest. Your environment needs to help you avoid making micro decisions every day. It can't be an obstacle. It needs to support your discipline and your new habit. Create your environment so that the new habit can actually happen in your life. In practice, this means that if you want to eat healthier, make the cooking process easier. Plan ahead so you have food, tools, and recipes easily accessible. If the ingredients are ready, cooking becomes simple. You don't have that initial barrier of having to think, organize, and start from scratch. If you want to read more, create a reading corner in your house. If the book is set aside and nearby, the chance of you reading increases a lot. If your shoes are by the door and your workout clothes are laid out, going for a walk has fewer decisions and obstacles. These are small details in your surroundings that end up guiding your behavior without you even realizing it. These changes seem small, but they have a very strong cumulative effect. Because you stop depending on willpower all the time. The environment becomes part of the process, and gradually, what used to require effort becomes more automatic, without needing to convince yourself every time. 2. The internal coach, journaling method. One of the habits that makes the most difference is writing down your progress. Keep it simple, nothing elaborate, just enough to see what's happening more clearly. Many people pay a lot for a coach to get exactly this: feedback. Someone who looks at their routine and points out the strengths and weaknesses. But the truth is, we can do this ourselves. with a simple notebook and 5 minutes a day. The method is simple. At the end of the day, write down everything relevant you did, but only what had real weight, positive or negative. Then, mark each activity with a color. Green for everything aligned with who you want to be. Red for everything that was self-sabotage. Waking up early, green. Exercising, green. Spending hours on your phone without noticing, red. Postponing something important, red. When you do this for a few days in a row, patterns start to emerge. You materialize your habits and start to see what's working and what needs to improve. Because what we measure, we see. And what we see, we change. By the way, if you want a structured space to put these reflections into practice, I created Here, Now, and Better, an intentional planner designed as a 4-step journey to guide you back to yourself. And with this small gesture, you also directly support this channel, allowing me to keep creating content that makes sense for you. Link in the description. 3. Dopamine hygiene. Here is a point worth remembering. Train your dopamine for the effort, not for the easy stimulus. I like to think of it simply as if there were 2 paths. One is cheap dopamine, and another is dopamine you need to earn. When you focus your dopamine on low-effort things, the reward comes fast and intense, but it leads nowhere. Most people think dopamine is about pleasure, but actually, dopamine is about wanting. It's about motivation. It's that drive to go after something. The problem is that modern life offers an absurd amount of things that trigger dopamine quickly and intensely. Hours of TV, ultra-processed food, quick, low-quality content. When everything gives immediate pleasure, nothing seems worth the effort. That's why so many people feel unmotivated without understanding why. And the tendency is to think the problem is personal. But in most cases, it's just the brain asking for a break from this constant bombardment. So, the most powerful change we can make is to reduce the stimuli that give instant gratification but build nothing. When we do this, natural motivation slowly returns, and doing things that require presence stops being such a sacrifice. 4. Be in a flow state. There are activities that require 100% of your attention. When this happens, you enter a state where you lose track of time and become completely immersed in what you're doing. This is what researchers call flow. Time disappears. You forget about yourself. There is only that activity and nothing else. Anyone who has ever been completely absorbed in fixing something with their hands, cooking a new recipe, or playing an instrument knows exactly what I'm talking about. The important point is what this creates. Every time you enter this state, you come out a little better than you went in. More skilled, more confident. It's a completely different feeling from the emptiness left after an afternoon on autopilot. Just watching TV, for example. This changes the way you see your day, because almost any activity can be done on autopilot, or with total presence, just for pleasure or with real involvement. When you notice this difference, you start to change what fills your time. You begin to choose more of what pulls you in, like reading, creating, or learning. And you gradually leave behind what only serves to pass the time. 90 days is not a long time, but it's not short either. It's enough time to stay exactly the same, or to become someone completely different. But this doesn't happen easily. It's not simple, it's not fast, and there is no perfect formula that fixes everything. What exists is building. You need to adjust the way you think, change how you act every day, create structure, cut out what gets in the way, and repeat what works. If you are building habits that bring purpose and real value to your life, even with small and imperfect steps, you are already closer than you imagined to being unrecognizable in 90 days.